Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Adrian Freighter. When businessman Joe Bogdanovich bought the franchise of Reggae Sumfest in 2016, it was generally felt that it was a good thing because in terms of finances, there was a belief that it was in safe hands going forward. However, with Bogdanovich taking the decision to move the 2026 edition of Reggae Sumfest to Plantation Cove in Centon with arguably two biggest headliners in dancehall music, the dancehall king Vybz Kartel and the Gully God Movado. The new question now is, should Reggae Sumfest enjoy success in Centon, will the festival stay there or will it return to the Catching All Stadium in Montego Bay? The Catching All Entertainment Center suffered extensive damage during the passage of Hurricane Melissa last October, so one can understand how difficult it would be to get the venue ready in time to stage Reggae Sumfest, which made it somewhat easy to understand the decision to move the festival to Centon for that one big night of Gully versus Gaza featuring Vybz Kartel versus Movado. However, it reflected on what happened to Reggae Sumfest's predecessor, Reggae Sunsplash, which packed up and left Montego Bay after the 1992 staging and went to Jam World in St. Catherine, and was not welcomed back to Montego Bay after that experiment failed, as Reggae Sumfest had emerged and filled the slot. While several major reggae shows have emerged in Europe over recent years, Reggae Sumfest remains the world's premier music reggae festival because it is from the homeland of reggae, Jamaica. To be truthful, Reggae Sumfest is not all about reggae music and the best of dancehall. It is also about the sun, sea, sun, and the general ambience of Montego Bay as a vibe city with the very best hotels on the island and the world-class airport, which is within an hour of all the major hotels, guest houses, and Airbnb locations. When Reggae Sunsplash left Montego Bay in 1992, after claiming that they were not being treated properly by the city's business community and hotel sector, it was feared that the city tourism would suffer because it had lost its major calling card, as it relates to pulling in thousands of visitors over the Emancipation Independence period. In fact, I believe that Synergy Promotions, the promoters of Reggae Sunsplash, were of the view that the Montego Bay would come crawling back to them, begging them to return to the city, and in so doing, offering them the goodies that they were hoping for and claimed they were not getting. However, it turned out that the Synergy folks miscalculated badly, as instead of getting on their knees and crawling back to them, the Montego Bay business community decided to create a festival of their own. That mission was driven by the likes of Johnny Guzan, Robert Russell, Mickey Morris, Lucille Lou, Godfrey Dyer, Sidney Reed, Walter Elmore, among others. In a few short months, everything was in place for the inaugural staging of Reggae Sumfest in 1993. When the original owners of Reggae Sumfest decided to sell the music festival in 2016 to Bogdanovich, many Montegonians were not happy, expressing the view that the festival would lose its Montego Bay identity. However, indications are the offer from Bogdanovich was so good that they just could not pass it up. Since 2016, under the stewardship of Bogdanovich, I believe the festival has lost some of its luster, as instead of being a premier reggae festival, it is heavily biased towards dancehall music. As a result, it has lost some very serious reggae fans who would prefer to sit and listen to a 45-minute set from a good band than to be listening to a DJ ranting and raving for 10 and 15 minutes. In fact, what made Reggae Sunsplash such a big, major global event, attracting solid fan support from faraway places such as Japan, the United Kingdom, Brazil, North and Central America, and the wider Caribbean, was the fact that it was featuring the very best of reggae. Back then, it was an absolute joy to be listening to bands like Steel Pulse and Aswad out of England, Lucky Dube out of South Africa, and of course our own Third World, Chalice, and backed up by our top flight singers like the late Dennis Brown and star DJ, Grammy winner Shabba Rankin, and the entertaining Shined. Unfortunately, Reggae Sumfest has now become the playground of DJs who cannot stay relevant for more than 15 to 20 minutes. Albeit, we have to acknowledge that there are notable exceptions in the likes of Bounty Killer, Beanie Man, Spice, Elephant Man, and I Octane. Should Reggae Sumfest find favor in St. Ann and Joe Bogdanovich decide to stay there, I hope that when Montego Bay creates its next replacement festival, it will go back to authentic reggae, which can attract fans from all over the world again. And if the show comes back to Montego Bay, I just hope that they will rejig the whole offering and take the emphasis off the dancehall music and put it back on reggae where it rightly belongs. Because in so doing, I believe Joe could then prove top Billboard producer Kemar Flavor McGregor wrong in his assessment that Reggae Sumfest is dead.
The reggae and dancehall industry going to put our industry, our entire reggae industry, into a white 80-year-old man. Right now, Reggae Sumfest is dead. This thing that they're keeping right now, this Gully Gaza, this is the blueprint of Sting. This is not Reggae Sumfest.
Time will ultimately decide what will become of Reggae Sumfest. But whatever it takes, Montego Bay needs a music festival during the summer months. And let us hope that we will get together one way or another. Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Adrian Freitas. Before you go, please remember to subscribe.